Okay, hope everybody's enjoying the weekend. Today is November 8th, 2014. I just want to go to some chart here. Right now, the first set of chart that I'm going to show is I left out the name intentionally. I just want to go to some of these pattern, and then we will go back and take a look at these chart and with respect to the actual stock or ETF or whatever they may be. Okay, so right now, the thing is, what I'm trying to show here is you look at this, it's really much like a topping pattern. Right? Here's a, little bit of a like a hangman candle, and then now you've got another smaller hangman candle doji, basically putting an inside bar inside this engulfing candle. The last Friday, yesterday, it kind of broke through the low of this engulfing candle and came down and filled this gap here. So right now, it seems like it is coming down to try to fill this particular gap. All right, and I might find a little bit of support here before it get down and completely fill this gap. Okay, so you can see essentially, if you're looking at this type of a pattern, you would definitely have a kind of short bias on this thing, right? At least you could say, this thing seems like it's heading down, right? Okay, so, and then here's another chart. Similarly, we see a similar type of a hangman type of candle with a inside bar, and then breaking below this engulfing low, coming down and fill this gap, and maybe it'll come down and fill this gap, and possibly come down and fill this gap here. So you can see that we could categorize all these different gaps as well, right? Could be a breakout gap, and here's a continuation gap, and here's the exhaustion gap, right? Right. So, and here's the other one, similarly to the previous two. Again, sort of like a hammer doji, right? Then we got a, candle breaking down below that, and now it's breaking, this big red candle is kind of breaking to this little pivot low here, and filling this gap here. Right? So now it's might, maybe coming down and possibly find a, a support level here. Okay, as it come down to fill this particular gap. Okay, and then the next one is we see similar, although not as obvious as a hangman type of candle, but certainly it's like a hangman, hammer sort of candle. And again, we got a little bit of a doji hammer, okay, sort of hangman, and you see it's kind of peeking out, right? You see these peeking out pattern, right? These sharp peak. Right, so you're kind of breaking down here, and here's some of the level that might be paying it, looking for this thing to come down. Okay, so essentially, right, those are typical, topping pattern. This one is not so obvious, but you could still see there's some kind of topping process going on here, right? And then here you can see you kind of fill this particular gap here, right? When it come down at this level here. Okay, so you can see that it's basically, sort of, like this kind of pattern, right? So essentially it's like this, right? So kind of fell out of bed here, right? And then just come down, and now, if we even broke through this level, so, maybe, come down and test these particular level for support, okay? So those are, some of the, typical topping pattern or a little bit more obvious topping pattern that we could see. Right? So, when you see something like that, you could kind of look at, hey, I think this thing is going down, right? That's pretty obvious, right? Okay. So, but as it turned out, all these charts that I just showed you, okay, it's a flip image of the actual, instrument that we're going to talk about. And this first one is actually GLD, right? Okay, so you see GLD here. All I did is I just basically flipped this chart vertically, right? And also I just changed the color of the candle, right? On the up candle instead of red, instead of white, I use red and vice versa. Okay, and that's why you see these different colors. So basically, you're seeing this candle when I flip it, right? And it looks like it's coming down. But if you look at the actual chart itself, it is going up. Okay, so so when you look at this, right, a lot of people basically were still listening to these talking head about gold going down to 700. Maybe it will go down to 700. Maybe it won't. But what does it matter right now? What it really matters is what is the price currently doing? right? And what it have done is basically tell us that, hey, it might have found a near-term bottom or a intermediate bottom that is going to bounce, right? As a trader, we trade based on, price movement. We don't trade based on the reason why the price moved, okay? Because we don't get paid to figure out why the price moved, right? We get paid by, betting on that price move, okay? Right? Because we're not here to try to write a newspaper story or be on CNBC or Fox News, business news, to go and, try to justify why gold went up or why gold went down. Okay, that's not how we get paid. We get paid by betting on this price move, okay? Okay, and and by the time that you read about why or somebody say this, somebody say that, that's all public information, right? So tell me something that I don't know. Right? Okay. So, and the thing is, I'm not in one of those privileged class that I'm going to get the information firsthand before everybody else does. And in this world, the reality is somebody always knows something before everybody else does. Right? And when those information get put into the market, we see it reflect on the price. Okay. So as a trader, since I'm not in that privileged class to have those first-hand information before everybody else does, and neither, I believe, most of you out there listening for me to yak here, okay, is probably don't get that information or in that privileged class either. So, if you say, oh, I could predict, things gonna move, well, then I just have one question for you. If you could predict, why aren't you filthy rich? Okay, so so the thing is, we're basically just looking at these price action and use of past experience, to make our best guess on placing a bet of where the price is going to go. But listen, we're not saying that every time that we see these type of price action, it will guarantee it's going to go to a certain direction. Okay, it's just that probability favor that it go to a certain direction. Okay, and that's where risk management come in to help mitigate some of those, time that we guess incorrectly. Okay, so that's GLD. You could see that the from what so what was talking about, the breakdown, the breakdown gap and then the continuation gap and then the exhaustion gap, right? So you can see that, it's kind of reverse of what we saw coming down. Was, on the top, going up on a topping process. Right now, basically, we're talking about on the, bottoming process. Right? So right now we say, it might come down, get up and fill this gap, and who knows, it might even come back up here to this 120, which is somewhere around 1200 for gold, right? So that's a possibility because right now we're basically looking at maybe coming up to this, 115 area, 1150. For the gold, somewhere around there, right? Okay. So then the other one here, if we take a look at the other one, right? Is, the next one, so, this one here. Again, this is a flip image of the next instrument, which is, basically silver, right? I just basically just flip this, right? You see this. Remember I was talking about this breakdown gap here, continuation gap, exhaustion gap, right? Okay, so right now it's coming up, maybe fill this gap and work itself back up to this level here, right? Okay, so, again, you see this, that was that little, what we call a hangman doji on the flip end, right? Right now, basically, this is like an inverted hammer, right? And then we got this little inside bar here that is coming up, and here it booked book above this particular engulfing candle, and it's making itself up, right? To move up, right? So, and then the the next one here that we look at, right, is basically the one of the gold miner GDX, okay, ETF, right? Okay, so here you go. This is that hangman that we were talking about. So you got this little doji here, inverted hammer here, coming up, filling up this gap here, right? So maybe the next level that is going to try to come up is at this level and possibly get up to this level, right? Okay. And then the following one, the next one here, this is the junior gold miner ETF, right? Okay. See again, not as obvious. Remember we were saying not as obvious as that hangman or inverted hammer, but you can see, okay, here's it, breaking out of these little pivot, right? And now it's making itself up, coming up and get on these level here. Okay. All right. Then the last one that we looked at is one of the actual gold miner. I believe this is Goldfield. The GFI. So and if we take a look at that, right? Okay. So here's GFI. So again, we're saying that, that topping process, that pattern is not so obvious. Here's the bottom, right? It looked like a little double bottom here, right? Right? Remember we were talking about this little spike, that little spike there, right? So we could be looking at that spike here, right? So you can see that, here's a little, pivot that broke through here, right? Okay. And right now it's maybe working itself up. Oops. Breaking this particular trend line here and work yourself up to this level. Okay. So the key is, don't be so biased into looking at specific, picture to fit your subconscious bias of what you hear. Yeah, because we kind of get inundated by all these BS stuff, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that, right? But always look at the price and see. And the trick that, sometimes it's not obvious because we tend to have that, not saying that we are, optimistic or realistically optimistic, but that's how human, mostly, is biased in the on a positive sense because we are optimistic, being, right? We always want to believe the positive, right? So we have a tendency to focus on a positive but not focus on the negative. So we tend to identify these topping pattern easier than try to identify these bottom pattern, right? These bottom pattern here, right? These pattern here. Okay, because we somehow, we got programmed to sort of look at these a little bit more easier than actually looking at these. But if we flip them, they are nothing any different than these guys up here, right? Okay, so maybe sometime, if your software doesn't flip it, I know, Thinkorswim actually have that capability to flip the chart for you. I believe you just put a minus sign or, that little dash mark before the ticker symbol, then it will flip it for you. Okay. If you can't flip it, just go and do a screenshot and then use Microsoft Paint or something, and then, flip it. And then maybe you can see that pattern a little bit more clear. So hopefully I give you some idea. And, certainly right now, look like gold is making a little bit of a bounce. I don't know how long this bounce is going to be, but hey, if it bounces, go for it, right? I mean, the pattern say it's going to go higher. So we'll just play along. And as long as it's moving in that direction, then, you ride it until it stops. So good luck. And maybe on later on to put up another video and then we'll take a look at the market and some momentum stock, and some of the widely watched stock. So enjoy the rest of the weekend and I talk to you later.